right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. It is a jam-packed month here in November. We have a whole bunch of really cool themes going on. The first being a theme around archaeology, paleontology, and geology. This is the first time we've ever had a theme like that. So if you visit exploringbytheseat.com, you can find all the events we have coming up. This week has been crazy busy. We've teamed up with CNN for their Call to Earth Week. So all week long, we've been hosting a whole bunch of live events, sharing the stories of scientists, adventurers, explorers, and conservationists on the front lines of our changing planet. So we still have another full day of those events coming your way tomorrow. You can find those on our website as well. And to wrap up what's already been a busy Thursday, we're going to do one of our favorite things to do here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and that is to get out live into the field. So you might remember a few weeks ago, we connected with some scientists who were heading north on the research vessel Sikuliaq to figure out how ice, waves, and sediment interact during the freeze up season. So they have so many cool toys there that they showed us. Things like underwater cables and floating sensors, amphibious drones. They were tracking storms, wind, how water affects ice formation, and coastal change. So the Coastal Freeze team has been really busy for the last couple of weeks. And we're pretty lucky in that now we get to catch up with them and see how things were going. Catch up with some of the scientists, maybe get to explore the ship a little bit today, learn a little bit more about what it's like to do science in a crazy environment like the Arctic out on the ocean. So I'm going to reach backstage and see if I can grab some of the team. Here we go. Hey, everyone, how are we doing today?
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
All right. Well, great to connect. It never ceases to amaze me how technology is changing so fast. We're getting these crystal clear connections from the Arctic Ocean. It's pretty awesome.
Excellent. Well, we're excited to talk to you guys today. My name's Emily Idem. I'm an oceanographer and a geologist, and we're out here in the Arctic Ocean with my colleagues, and we're studying how sea ice forms. And we wanted to give you guys a little bit of a tour today about life and work on the ship. So let's go. We're going to start out on the main deck. So this is the main working deck for the ship, and as you can see, we're out in the Arctic Ocean right now, and it's a pretty stormy fall day. We've had a lot of wave energy and a lot of storm action, so we're actually not seeing a lot of sea ice at this site today, but there's sea ice growing all around us. And we're doing a variety of things to study that. We've got a lot of tools out here. We have cranes and A-frames and small boats, and we spend a lot of time having scientists, engineers, technicians, all working together to try to do some really cool science. Today we have a big instrument on the seafloor, a big frame with a lot of sensors, and we are trying to recover it to get data off of it, and then we want to put it back out so that it can sample for the whole winter. So there's some scientists over here. They have a device in the water that emits sound, and they're actually trying to talk to the sensor through sound so that we can send it some signals to bring it to the surface. All right, let's move on into our next working space. So in here, this is what's called the Baltic room, and you can kind of think of it like the garage bay in your house. This is sort of a staging area between us and the outdoors. We have a lot of cool instruments in here. This is what we call a tripod. It's a little frame that we deploy on the seafloor. And this was out for about 5 weeks, and we recovered it a couple days ago. And this is just like the one that's on the seafloor now that we're currently trying to bring back so that we can put it back out over the winter so it can collect data under the sea ice. We also have an array of drifters that we've been using. Those have an accelerometer, kind of like in your phone, that registers motion, and we use those to measure wave energy. And then this one suffered. It got hit by some sea ice and some waves, and the top broke off, and it got a little water inside of it. But that's okay. We kind of expect that that'll happen. So we always bring a lot of instruments, and oceanography sometimes involves losing things or having them broken. So it's a pretty harsh environment. There's a giant door here. That's an important part of the Baltic room. Every couple of days, that giant door opens, and there's a much smaller boat that is held up on another upper deck, and they actually lower that down on a little boat elevator. And we load up a lot of the gear that's in here, the sampling equipment, And we take the small boat into shallow water where the big ship can't reach. So we get water samples, we put out smaller versions of drifters, and we take out lasers and optical sensors, and we measure all sorts of water properties. And then we also have a giant CTD rosette. This is a hallmark of oceanography. This measures salinity and temperature, and this can go all the way down to the deep sea floor, several thousand meters below the surface. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in this room. We're always moving in and out of here. It's a place where we can bring muddy things, we can hose them down. We log all of our measurements on a computer. We log that things went over the side. And the best part about this room is that it's got a lot of heaters. So we're able to come in here and get warm and kind of get staged and ready for the next on-deck deployment. You might also notice that there's no ice on the deck, and the floor in here is very dry, even though we rinse a lot of stuff off, and that's because the deck is actually heated to keep ice off of it. And that's one of my favorite parts of the ship. It makes it a lot easier to work on here and work safely. So let's move on, and we'll go into some of the interior labs of the ship. This one is called the wet lab. So we kind of have this transition from the garage space into this wet lab where, depending on what type of science is happening, there might be chemistry tools in here. We have a lot of supplies set up right now for these moorings, these seafloor instrument packages that we deploy, and they require a lot of hardware and a lot of rigging. So you see lines, you see tools. We have a lot of special instrumentation that we strap onto these tripod frames to put out. This is an example of a sensor that we've been using. It's called a hydrophone, and it's basically just like an underwater microphone. So like an underwater version of the microphone I'm wearing to talk to you. And we suspend this in the water column, and it just listens, and it can hear whales, it can hear the ship noise. And we're hoping to measure other things. We can measure wave noise, and we can hear the ice moving around in the winter. So we like to deploy these for months at a time to measure sound. So we also have a lot of cold weather gear in here. This is kind of like our closet. It's where we get dressed to go outside. Going out to do work on deck requires a lot of equipment. You want to be safe out there. So we have these special suits. They look kind of dirty because we've been collecting a lot of mud. But this is like a full body size PFD or life vest. There's flotation all throughout this. And I really like these because not only do they keep you afloat if you fall overboard, but they keep you very warm. It's a lot of good insulation. So we wear full suits to go out in small boats. We wear sort of parka versions of PFDs to go out on deck. And we have a lot of good gloves and boots that we wear. Let's move on into the main lab. So this is the main lab, and this is where the scientists really live and work. This is kind of like our office and our day use space. So we have our computers in here, and we're constantly processing data and trying to keep up with all the data that's coming in. We've got big monitors. We can see webcams of different parts of the ship, so we always know what's going on. This screen right now is showing the acoustic signatures in the water because we're trying to use sound to talk to our instruments, and we want to be aware of all the sound that's in the ocean right now. And then we have maps for navigation that help us know where the ship is at any given time. And you'll see these computer screens throughout the ship. We have a lot of data running all throughout the ship that we can access at any time. Hey, Malcolm, what are you working on right now?
I am looking at some data from our keychain, which is a vertical line of temperature sensors. And it measured some really interesting stratification. So cold water on the top here, warm water sitting underneath it, which, of course, is warm water came up to the surface later and melted a bunch of the ice.
Cool. Yeah, so that was the result of some sensors that we deployed similar to that hydrophone. We had them on a mooring for about a week, and then we recovered it, and we were able to see huge water masses moving around between the deep ocean and the continental shelf.
Where's everyone?
Everyone is pretty busy right now. We're in the middle of trying to recover this mooring, and so we've got a few people out on deck. Joe's in the corner over there sending acoustic signatures to that instrument package. And everyone else is up on the bridge right now. They've all got binoculars, and they're trying to look for that sensor to come back. So it's a pretty busy morning on the ship. And then final and most important.
Talk about the board.
Oh, yeah. So we've got a board here, and this is a tracking list of all of our drifters that we have on this trip. Some of them are out right now. They're out drifting. Number 13 is drifting. Some of them we've recovered. And we have codes that we can use to find them on the ship's radar. So we always know where they are so that we don't run over them, and then we know where to go to pick them up later. And then finally, we've got our coffee maker in here. It gets a special place in the packing list because we've got to have a lot of caffeine to keep going. The ship works 24 hours, so we all work on different shifts to keep the science fully staffed during that time. So there's always someone in this lab 24/7. All right, let's keep going and look at some of the science. So down below us, there's 2 different levels of engineering. So that's where all the engines are. That's a really cool space. We won't go down there today because they're pretty busy, but we'll check out some of the science spaces. This is one of our analytical labs, and there's a lot of sample processing that happens in here. What are you guys working on right now?
We are working on processing all of the ice that has melted from our workboat trips yesterday and turned into lovely muddy water. So we're doing 2 different things right now. We are filtering it for sediment concentration, and we are also running it through one of our instruments called the list, which measures the distribution of sizes of the sediment or the mud that is in suspension in the water. So we are letting the ice melt. We're putting a little bit through filtration, and then we are pumping a bunch of it through the instrument, the list, to understand how big the sand and mud particles are that we're seeing in the ice and water here.
Very cool. Yeah, so as scientists and as geologists, we're kind of interested in the fact that the ice is really muddy, and we're trying to measure how much dirt is in the ice, figure out where it goes. So next we're going to stop by the computer lab, and this is kind of the brain of the ship. We have a tremendous number of instrument systems on the ship. This is one of my favorite walls. You can see a lot of different displays on here. One of the main things we do is mapping. So we're always interested in mapping the seafloor, and we use acoustic sensors to do that. They send out a big swath of sound. It almost looks like an ultrasound that you might get at the doctor, only we're scanning the seafloor. And we can create 3D maps like this. So we know exactly what's down there. We can map interesting geology features, and we can also avoid running the ship into things that might be on the seafloor. We use other types of sound to actually look into the seafloor, so we can send out higher powered sound, and we can get acoustic signatures below the seafloor to see what sorts of sediments are down there. So that's good for geology. We have a satellite array. It's tough in the Arctic to maintain good satellite communications, so we have some pretty high-powered systems so that we can remain in touch and have internet to talk to you guys. And then we have a lot of sensors that look at weather and keep us on top of the meteorology of this area. So pretty important space. Michael, what are you working on right now?
I'm tracking what the sea ice has been doing across our service areas. So here's the sea ice from yesterday. In the southern half of the area we're researching, but northeasterly winds have really kicked up the seas and melted the sea ice, so we're back to almost nothing with just a little bit of sea ice related here, and the pack ice has started to move down from the northeast.
Very cool. Yeah, so the ice is coming, it's headed our way, and we spend a lot of time and energy trying to track all that so that we can know when we have to start breaking ice, which is one of the things the ship's really good at. So we're kind of excited to see ice soon. All right, let's go upstairs and see where we live. So there's a lot of stairways in the ship, and they're a little narrow, and they can be a little tough to traverse when there's a lot of wave energy. Let's go to the galley. So this is the mess hall or the dining hall. We typically call it the mess hall or a galley on a ship. And this is where we all get together to have 3 meals a day. And it's staffed by a galley crew of about 3 people, and they work extremely hard to make meals for everyone. And you know, I'm not that big of a fan of cooking at home. It's a lot harder on a ship when things are always moving, and they have to have some special tools to keep all the pots and pans on the burners and not have things flying all over the place in the waves. So it's a tough job out here. And then this is where we gather to eat. It's pretty fun. This is a nice place to get together and see people. We have safety meetings in here, we have meals, and this is where some really good brainstorming happens. You know, you can work on deck out all day, get kind of cold, come in, have a nice hot meal, and just sit with colleagues and talk about science, talk about the research, catch up with the crew on what's going on. So this is one of our favorite spaces. We also have a rec area behind here where we can watch movies. There's couches in there. We play a lot of cards out at sea. And we have an endless supply of snacks. They keep us very well fed. There's always chocolate. There's all sorts of things. There's chips in the window. We have a really good setup here. And there's a lot of snacks for after hours meals too if you're on a 24-hour shift. You found the ice cream drawer, the most important drawer. There's always a lot of ice cream on the ship, and it changes week to week, so we always have a good supply. All right, let's go see one of the rooms. Should we go back out this way?
Let's go that way.
That way? Okay. So we can make a loop here. We have computer screens in the mess so that we can keep tabs on when our next station is. This one? All right, so we're going to check out John's room. So this is one of the rooms on the ship. They're small, but they're very cozy and they're very well set up. So we have bunk beds, and we usually sleep 2 people to a room, and then 2 rooms share a bathroom or a head. So not too bad as far as space. Everybody gets a desk, and you'll notice there's all sorts of special storage. Everything has to be secured because on a rough night, everything will fly open if it's not secured, and you'll just hear drawers banging all night. Sometimes we even have to strap the chairs down. And then the storage spaces are always very creative on ships. There's not a lot of room, so we've got space behind mirrors to store toiletries. We've got these big metal wardrobes where we can store our clothes. And then the real trick is to figure out how to secure your hangers so that you don't hear them hitting the wall all night of this metal cabinet. So everybody's got strategies. And then the mattresses are foam, and on really rough nights, if you stuff a pillow under it, you can like make a mattress taco and not roll out of your bunk. And then here's the head. There's a shower and a toilet in there. And it's not too bad. The shower is big enough to shower comfortably, but small enough that you can kind of wedge yourself against the walls if there's a lot of waves so that you can stay upright. And if it's too rough, you know, just skip a shower for a couple days. All right, shall we go up to the bridge next?
Stairs are that way.
Stairs that way. Stairs. Stairs are this way. Ours get turned around on the ship.
So while you're making your way up, I'm just sharing a couple pictures here, starting with your location. I'm going to scroll through a few photos while you make your way to the bridge.
Okay, so we just walked up 5 flights of stairs to get up to the bridge. The bridge is one of the tallest points on the ship, and this is where a lot of the navigation and the driving happens. So this is a pretty critical space. Up here, they have various navigational aids. So they have a lot of the old classic maps and charts, but they also have a lot of modern computer systems up here for looking at ice, managing the ship track. This is one of the radar computers that they use. The ship is always in the middle, and the radar can look out and see if there's any obstructions around us. It can also help us find things that we're looking for. So if we're looking for a drifter, we can often use that. Let's go over to this side. Over here, we've got a logbook area. The ship has to keep a very detailed log of everything that happens. If things go overboard, they keep track of the weather, take a lot of good notes. So a big part of doing field oceanography and going to sea is taking really good notes so we can remember everything that we did. If you can look out on the bow, there's an awful lot of ice out there. We had a lot of big waves in the last few days, and there was a lot of freezing spray, and that turns the bow of the ship white. And the crew actually has to go out every couple of days and knock the ice off. So if you can find a good baseball bat, it's a good hour spent out there trying to knock ice off of the ship. At a certain point, it actually makes the ship heavy, and they have to adjust the ballast, which is the amount of water they store on board, to compensate for that. And then you'll notice there's all these giant windows everywhere that give us a really good view so they can keep a lookout. And these have pretty fancy windshield wipers to try to keep them clean, because believe it or not, you can get sea spray this high off the water. We're about 5 stories up right now.
I think Maddie should get in the chair.
So Maddie's our chief scientist on this cruise. Maddie, what's going on this afternoon with the science?
We're working on trying to recover some of the instruments that we put out earlier in the year in the summer, and so we're just up here looking around for signs of it and trying different approaches to see if we can get it up. Liam's been navigating around it very carefully in different directions.
Liam, you're driving the boat right now.
Yep.
How do you enjoy that?
I like it.
Yeah? How'd you get
Fun
here?
job. I went to a maritime academy for 4 years, and then I met the port captain for Sikuliaq, and he offered me a spot.
Cool. How many days a year do you spend at sea?
220 this year.
Wow, that's a lot of time at sea.
Yeah.
And where are you going after this cruise?
We're going to Tahiti and Hawaii.
Nice. So you guys get to go from the Arctic to the tropics. That sounds pretty good. Be at the tropics for the holidays.
What drew you to this career?
I always liked being on the water. I grew up working on boats.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should let you get back to driving. I know you guys are doing important stuff today, looking for that mooring. Shall we go out on the back deck, chat with some other scientists? Let's go out this way. So this deck behind the bridge is a pretty important lookout place. This is where we often bring out our binoculars and scan for instruments that are in the water. And with us today, we've got a couple of the junior scientists on this project. We've got Jen Su, who is an oceanographer who works with acoustics in the ocean. And we've got Maddie, who is an environmental engineering student at the University of Washington, who's studying some of the physical oceanography. So what got you guys both into oceanography? What got you out on the ship today?
All right, well, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Junsu, and I have actually sidetracked into oceanography. I was actually trained to become an electrical and computer engineer, and I got involved with research that was about wireless underwater, which involved acoustics. And I was fascinated by this intersection of technology and oceanography, and that passion grew, and I ended up getting a PhD, and now here I am in the Arctic. It's not something I expected a while ago, but this is quite an experience.
Nice. What's been your favorite part of the cruise so far?
There are many favorite moments. Besides the amazing observation of the ice formation, my personal favorite has been the food on the ship. It's been an amazing culinary experience as well.
The food is really great out here. Maddie, how about you?
I really stumbled into oceanography accidentally. I'm an engineering student, and Jim Thompson, one of the lead scientists here, was my fluids professor, and I just loved his class, and I just really enjoyed studying the physics of fluids. And I went up to him, asked him after class one day, I think your research is really cool, and I want to get into it. And I interviewed, and I got the spot here, and it's going to be hard to look away and do anything else. So
Tips for students.
So you're hooked on this now. That's great. Any tips for students in middle school or high school who might think they are interested in oceanography?
Ooh, I feel like my more general piece of advice is to just talk to your teachers, because they're super knowledgeable, and it can be really intimidating, especially early on in university when you're in really big classes. But just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and just ask questions. So
Awesome.
Any tips, Junsu?
I would say be prepared to seize your opportunity. I think it helped. I didn't know which direction of career path I was heading towards, but I enjoyed and did pretty well on the studies of my interests. And when the opportunity came up for me to intern at a company or run into a professor to talk to them and get an opportunity, I said yes, and this is the reason why I can do this. and that kind of got me further and further into my career path.
Nice. That's great. Well, that's kind of the end of our tour, but we would love to hear any questions from you guys that you have about life or work on the ship or career pathways into maritime work or oceanography or any type of research like that.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much for that great tour. It was great to see a little bit more of the ship. It is a beautiful ship, and it's nice to hear everybody's well fed. That seems to be a common theme, that the food's really good. So it's nice to see the spot where that happens. So if you are tuning in via YouTube, don't be shy to use the chat sidebar. I can collect questions from the classrooms who are joining us in the backstage space as well. So we're going to get right into it. And the first question that we have in the chat is about the sea ice. So how successful were you in getting out into the sea ice this time around?
Can you repeat that, please? You broke up.
Yeah, this question is about the sea ice, and have you had the ship in the sea ice yet so far on this expedition?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of good sea ice. Not as much as we were expecting for this time of year because we've had a lot of storm energy and waves, but we've seen some lovely ice. We've seen a lot of our favorite kind, pancake ice, which forms these really round plates because the wave action sort of moves it all around and wears down the edges. And then yesterday there was a big, basically the wind stopped yesterday and there was even thicker ice that had formed near shore that all got rafted out into the bay. And so we had the small boat out and basically we were picking our way through nothing but ice of all different types. Anything from slush, like a 7-Eleven slushie, all the way up to really big pieces that were getting to be about a foot thick. So we have seen some good ice and we're expecting to see a lot more good ice on the way home.
All right, so we've got a picture here of that pancake ice. It's pretty cool to see the way that it forms. So I've got a question from some fourth graders wondering about wildlife. Have you spotted any wildlife, bird life, marine mammals? What's that been like over the last 2 weeks?
Well, I will say due to the lack of ice and how early we are up here right now, we haven't seen any polar bears, unfortunately, but we did maybe see a seal from very far away on an ice float, and then we see some birds every once in a while, but honestly, not a ton of wildlife.
Yeah, a lot of the birds have already gone south for the year, so we're seeing the hardiest species who are still happy being up here. We've seen some cormorants and some mures, and a lot of other folks have gone south for the winter.
There's a weird goal to not see wildlife or not affected.
Yeah, that's a good point. In some ways, we're kind of glad not to see wildlife. There are whales that migrate through this area this time of year, and we would really like to not bother them and kind of not be around them. So in some ways, that's good to not see the whales. We think that they've already gone through for the year.
Yeah, one way that we can tell that they're not around is by listening underwater. These whales, marine mammals, they are very vocal. They will talk loudly underwater. And we've been having a hydrophone, which is an underwater microphone that you saw earlier, measuring sounds every day, and I've been going through it. But fortunately, unfortunately, the only sound that I could hear were the waves breaking and the ship that we were on.
Okay. Well, I've got a question here from a class in Ontario who joined us last time, and Jim showed them the buoys that he'd be deploying in the water. So they're wondering how successful that was. Have you deployed and safely recovered some of those buoys?
Yeah, we've been deploying them in the morning and then recovering them in the afternoon, and they've all been pretty successful. Even we've gotten the microswifts out, which are about this big, and then we have big buoys that are like this big, and it's really fun in the evening to recover them. You get to throw a grappling hook overboard to bring them in.
And we have a 100% recovery rate so far. We have not sacrificed any to the ocean yet. They've all come back, and they've all come back with good data.
Even the one that got murked by the
Yeah, one of them got run over by ice, and it's still okay.
Do you want to talk about that's what you work on?
Oh yeah. So before I came on this cruise, I helped build these microswifts, which are smaller than the swifts you're seeing on the screen, and they're meant to be disposable or expendable. And yeah, they are all ready to go, and some of them are out in the field. And yeah, it's cool to build something and actually see it go to use. So
nice. Yeah, that's really rewarding to have an idea and get to build it yourself and then go deploy it in the ocean. And we'll be getting data back from some of those probably several months to come. They're going to transmit data by satellite even after we leave the study area. So they're pretty great tools.
All right, so I've got a question here in the YouTube chat. Curious about the wave heights you're seeing and the periods. What are you seeing up there right now?
What's the biggest height been that we've seen?
I think the record is 3 meters
Yeah.
the height,
We
and
place bets.
So about 10 feet.
about
So-
10 feet.
10 or 12 feet, so about 3 or 4 people tall.
Yep. And
Okay.
the period that we measured is roughly, they're centered around 5 to 6 seconds of a period.
What's the period?
Period is how fast the crest falls up and down in 1 second. Sorry, how long one cycle takes.
It's a good point. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't measuring the ones that we went through to get here. I
Yeah.
think that those were quite a bit bigger.
Yep. Yeah, there's a good picture of some big waves.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, well, I had a feeling this question would cycle back in here. This is from some 5th graders in British Columbia, and they're wondering, has everybody found their sea legs? We heard some stories last time that a few people, it was a little slow maybe.
Yeah, it took us a while. We were going through the Bering Sea, which is one of the really rough patches of the world's oceans, and then we got up here into the ice and it was fine, and then the waves turned back on, and I feel like I lost my sea legs and had to refine them, but after enough time out here, you do get used to it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was pretty seasick for the first few days, and then afterwards, magically, I am happy and eating good food. So yes, I think I definitely earned my sea legs here.
Let's see. I don't really get seasick, not to be
Lucky you.
rude,
Yes.
but I was in a sling for the first week and a half of the cruise, so it was definitely a challenge getting around the boat with only one arm. in the sea
But you
state.
made it,
I made it. I'm still here.
and you're out of the sling.
I also don't get seasick until 2 weeks ago.
You've joined the club.
It hit me pretty hard. I joined the club, and I'm ready to not be in that club again.
All right, I've got a question here about if you have seen the Northern Lights, and I have a picture here that I think answers that question, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
I actually missed it.
We saw them not once, but twice, and they were absolutely stunning. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah,
South Denver.
yeah, when you see them up here, they're magical and wonderful. The challenge of being here in the fall is that it's almost always cloudy, and it has to do with the ocean losing all this heat. So you are lucky if you get a break in the clouds. But the good news is it's dark most of the day here, so you have a lot of opportunity if it is cloud-free.
Okay, that's great. I've actually got one more photo here. Maybe I'll put that one up there. Yeah, not too shabby. Okay, let's get into a question about, because we talked last time about baselines and how, you know, you collect data to see how things are changing. And I know many of you have been out on different cruises before up to the Arctic. So it has this year differed to previous years. Are you seeing more or less sea ice? Is it forming earlier or later? Are you seeing anything like that? Any changes?
You know, we have a lot of data to go home and this new wave data, and we'll be spending a lot of time at home figuring out how that impacts the ice.
Okay, looks like we're having a little wrestle with the signal here, so we'll give it a moment and let the satellite try and sort itself out and reconnect for us. We'll just give it a moment. It's been a really good connection so far. Don't forget from that image I showed you before, and let me bring that up really quickly again and give you just an idea of their location, how far north they are on the Arctic Ocean. So the technology that lets us connect like this is pretty amazing. So no surprise that from time to time, we're going to kind of lose it. It kind of has to recenter and find itself. So we'll give it a moment and see if we get the Coastal Freeze team back in here. And we'll get a few more of these classroom questions answered. Maybe while we hold for a second for this reconnect, they sent me some great drone shots of the ship. So we're seeing it from the inside really well, but I think it would be neat to see some of these drone shots just to get a feel for what the research vessel looks like. So you can see here, it's pushed into the ice. I've got this really cool drone shot as we make our way around. We saw the front from those big windows. We saw that ice on the front. And this looks like one of the cranes where they can actually lower the scientists right down onto the sea ice. I've got another one here. Let me grab another video here for us to check out, another drone shot. And let's do this one. Here's another nice drone shot. So there we go. You can see this shot here, again, pushed into the ice. And get a nice feel for what the research vessel looks like from the outside. Now, we talked a little bit about the pancake ice, and we talked about how Jim has the buoys in that ice. So I have another little video clip that I'm going to share, and this kind of shows you one of those buoys in that pancake ice. So while we wait for that spinning wheel to stop spinning and hopefully a reconnection, let's take a look at this one here. It's down here at the bottom. We get a nice look there. You can see this little grappling hook that they're using to try and snag the buoy. You can see some instruments, the flashing light on top, a little bit of slushy ice around it. You can see that pancake ice. All right, very cool. Coastal Freeze team, are you there? No, it looks like they're still struggling with the signal. It just came back onto the screen. It's giving me a little bit more spinning. So I do have a couple more videos that I'll share while we wait to see. We heard Emily talk about the engine room. We didn't get to go down into the engine room. So I have a little clip that I can show classes. You guys can get a feel for what the engine room looks like here. So just bear with me for a second. I've got a couple engine room clips. So we'll take a look at a couple of these clips so you can see the engines that are powering this really big research vessel. So here's our first one here. We can get a look. I left the sound on so you can hear how loud things are. So I imagine if you're working down there, you're wearing headphones to protect your ears. Definitely a pretty loud space. And then let's take a look at another little clip here. I hope we're able to get them back and squeeze in a few more questions before our time runs out. But you just can't predict sometimes what satellite is going to do. But here's another glimpse of another portion of the engine room. Looks like some pumps. Definitely loud. Definitely lots of things happening there. All right. And then I've got one more clip here that I can share. We heard Emily talk a few times about the little boat. So putting the little boat out on the water, recovering things and such. Oh, I think I have someone coming back in the studio. We might be reconnected. Hey team, how are you doing?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah, I'm getting a tiny bit of feedback because I think two devices are open, but I do have you, which is good.
Awesome. Okay, we're glad to be back. Yeah, the satellite connections are kind of tough out here sometimes. We're actually glad we have any internet at all.
Well, we talked about that, and John had sent me some great clips. So I played a few clips so they could see the vessel, they could see the engine room. So they got a chance to check out some of that stuff as well. So big shout out to John for sending us those clips.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
All right, so let's squeeze in a few more questions here. And so this question I have here, this is from a classroom in the US, in New York. And they're wondering, okay, you've been on the expedition. What do the next few weeks look like when you get home?
Oh man, they're going to be so busy. I mean, first I think we're going to go home and do some laundry and get some extra sleep. And I don't know, I got to go mow my lawn. But then we're going to be looking through an awful lot of data. So we have a lot of data files, measurements we collected on the ship from drifters, things that were out in the ocean for a while that we brought back. And it's kind of like unwrapping the Christmas present at the end when you can really go home and sift through it all and clean it up and start making some data interpretations. What are you guys most excited about when you get home?
Ooh, let's see. I get to see my little sister back in Seattle, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice.
A little bit of privacy, sharing room with John right there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of personal space at sea, so I think we all appreciate that when we get back. Although, I don't know, I usually start missing people right away once I get home. It's always a good time out here.
How about Clarissa?
Yep.
I guess not having to deal with the big waves.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, that's fair. I want to ask you about one video that I have here that I didn't get a chance to play, but there's a cool piece of kit hanging off the back of the A-frame. So I want to play this video, and maybe you can tell us what this is. So give me just 2 seconds here to get it loaded up on my screen, because we've seen lots of the gear, but we haven't seen this before. So can you tell us? Here, it's coming up now.
Oh yeah, that's wild. So that was a cruise from a few years ago, and I was on that trip, and that is basically it's an enormous fishing net for scientific research.
Yeah.
It's a special type of trawl net, and on that cruise they were searching for a tiny rare fish species called polar cod that live in the Arctic, and they were basically trying to tow that net just under the edge of the ice because that's where the polar cod like to live, because there's a lot of food for them there. There's little tiny organisms and algae that they can eat. And they got a few on that trip. It was a lot of work towing that net.
Okay, I've got a follow-up from that classroom in New York, and they're wondering, the buoys, are they all recovered, or do you leave any of them just to keep going and collecting data for the season?
It depends on the type of buoy. The smaller microswifts we leave out here that we do not intend on recovering them, and that's very intentional. Because then they're able to like freely float for longer periods of time. They have an endurance of about 2 months. And then the bigger buoys are much more expensive. So the bigger buoys are much more expensive. They have more valuable instruments, so we do recover those.
Okay. Sounds like a little bit of action. Are you having any luck tracking down your piece of kit?
Yeah, so for the first time in 2 days, a float that we've been looking for just appeared. We've been searching really hard for it, and we were getting a little worried. So lots of excitement on the ship right now, and we're basically going to kick into high gear and get everyone out on deck, and we're going to try to get this thing back and get the data off. So busy time for us. I don't know if you can see the float out there.
Yeah, can you guys see it?
We see the orange float.
It just popped up magically right next to the boat.
It's kind of like a Where's Waldo game.
That's pretty convenient.
It is great. Yeah, you guys have impeccable timing being part of this to see it come up. We're very excited.
You guys are good luck.
Yeah, perfect. Well, walk us through what's going to happen next, because I don't know if we'll be able to see any of the process, but maybe you can tell us what it's going to look like.
Yeah, let's go outside and we'll point out some of the equipment.
It might get a little bit windy.
That's okay. We can handle that. Make us feel like we're out there with you.
So, yeah, now that the float has come up, Liam, who's driving the ship, is going to have to do a really careful job of steering. And they're going to line it up on that side of the ship. And then people with boat hooks and grappling hooks are going to try to grab onto it. And then they're going to take the big ring on that instrument and they're going to rig it up to one of these cranes or the aft A-frame. And that line is going to get connected to a giant winch that's several feet wide. And they're going to winch that instrument package off the seafloor. And we should have it up on deck within the hour. And hopefully we can send you guys some photos of it. It should be exciting.
Yeah, that'd be great. And so a question just came through the chat. How deep is this instrument package right now?
That's a great question. So we're coastal oceanographers. We don't work in super deep water. So this is at about 30 meters water depth or 120 feet. But that's still enough depth to make this a little bit tricky with the wind and waves. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Jim, when we connected last, talked a little bit about how expeditions never go as planned. You have to be flexible. Things come up. So over the last couple weeks, were there any, things you had to work around, quote unquote, fires to be put out, things you had to do?
Yeah, on the scale of flexibility, this trip demanded a lot of us. We didn't leave as expected. The ship had some mechanical issues that they worked really hard to fix quickly. We ended up adding a couple thousand miles to our transit so that we could try to get there faster. We actually left from a different port. We changed a lot of flights. And then when we got here, the wave energy really picked up. There was a strong storm that came through and it actually made it a little hard to work, and we didn't see as much sea ice as we were hoping. And these instruments have been a little uncooperative coming back, but like so many trips, it seems like it all works out in the end. We've gotten a lot of data, we've gotten awesome drifter measurements, and we're about to get back our second instrument. So, in the end, it all turns out great. Everybody pulls together, the ship's crew and the scientists, and we make it work and get the most we can out of it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, I think we can get one more question in here. And
Over to the team.
let me just change views here. And I think, you know, this is kind of an interesting one to kind of wrap things up on. And that, oh, there we go. A nice team shot. Hey, everybody.
We gathered the troops for you.
Yeah, let me get that bigger. Very cool. So, you know, you're out collecting the data. Now you're going to be analyzing the data. So, you know, what picture are you hoping to have by the end when this is kind of done? And you know, what information will you have added to about how the coastal ice is forming and what's going on?
Yeah, we're learning a lot about how waves and sea ice interact. We're learning more about the seafloor, and we're trying to collect a lot of observational data. You know, we've talked about baselines a bit. One of the things we're out here doing is creating a baseline because this is such a data poor area. But we're also learning more about how storms impact sea ice formation. And we hope that in the future that can help us better model and predict how the seafloor is going to erode, how much sea ice there might be in the future, when that sea ice is going to form in the fall relative to when there's a lot of storm energy. And eventually a lot of that data will trickle up into global models of these global Earth systems and how the ocean and the sea ice work together.
Okay. I know I said that was the last question, but another one came in asking about the grabber. Did you grab any stuff from the bottom?
We did. We grabbed so much good mud. We have bags and bags of it. We've been filtering it. We're going to sieve it when we get home. We found a few cool organisms. There aren't a lot up here, but we did find some, and we threw them back right away. It was very successful. It's a great tool.
Some of the mud that they saw in the lab was from that.
Yeah, some of the mud that these guys were working with in the lab was from that instrument.
All right, excellent. Well, I'm going to bring this screen back here. And, you know, Emily, John, the whole team, it was a really fun to connect these two connections on the way out to the expedition and then to kind of see what had gone on. I'm glad we could bring a little luck to find that instrument right in the end. So I want to give a shout out to the whole team. I think I see Maddie there too. It was really great to be able to do this, to bring it to classrooms. There's John. So appreciated. I've got classrooms here in the chat thanking you as well. I've got one class saying congratulations. I know the journey's not quite done, but it sounds like you've got some great science, and it's going to be really exciting to see what goes out. And then I guess the last thing to think about is, are you guys going out again next year?
Of course, yeah. We'll be back on a much smaller boat to get the last few sensors out of the water. But, you know, it'll be Arctic summer then. It'll be July. It'll be a few degrees warmer.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks, everybody. Get inside, warm up a little bit. And I can't wait to see pictures from the instrument recovery. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.